Hi everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Startup Operator Roundup. I'm your host Gunjan Saha, and I have with me Roshan, with who I'll be discussing the greatest news from the last week. The weekly roundup is our live discussion of the week's biggest headlines from the Indian startup ecosystem. So if you're curious about startups or want to know how the world's second largest startup community is evolving in this decade, follow the Startup Operator on your go-to podcast player. Hi Roshan, it's a fine Sunday afternoon. How are you doing? How are you doing?
It's still a Sunday morning for me, Gunjan.
Oh wow.
But yeah, fantastic news coming in, right? I think we all heard about UPI and Pay Now. So basically, what both the governments and the regulators have done in India and Singapore is figure a way for them to be compatible between UPI and what the equivalent is, peer-to-peer equivalent in Singapore is, which is Pay Now, right? So
Right.
this will facilitate seamless sort of remittances, international credit transfers, and so on, right? So one of the things that we often discuss is if India's stack can be globalized, right? Whether it is the UPI or the DigiLocker, eKYC, all of those things that come with the India stack, it can be globalized, and some of these international transfers and things can be facilitated. And this is a very useful first step to that, right? I think in the G20 itself, I mean, some of this was discussed in terms of financial inclusion, greater trade between countries, and so on. And this is a very positive step, right? So if you look at UPI, you can never stop raving about UPI, right? I mean, just in August of 2021, 355 crore transactions worth some 6.39 lakh crores, right? So it's a massive thing, right? And we're going to talk about a few of these startups as well going further in the roundup, which have like solely leveraged that, right? So interestingly, Balaji Srinivasan had mentioned, he has a fantastic article called Add Crypto to the India Stack, right? And his basic premise is that this will enable decentralized finance. And one of the major use cases for crypto is also this whole credit transfers between borders and remittances and so on, right? So in this case, RBI and the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, has worked this out. And it saves a bunch of costs in terms of interbank transactions, LRS processing, and so on, right? So I mean, as we move towards a more multipolar sort of a world structure, and there's going to be more trade between different countries, this is just going to help. And Singapore is not the first, will not be the last, of course. I mean, we will have these sort of alliances and partnerships with other countries of the world. So this is a very interesting and important trend, right? And aside from that, I mean, we crossed 2.5 crore vaccinations a day, man. I mean, that's just, we were raving about the fact that we did 1 crore a day, which is a phenomenal feat by itself. But 2.5 crores is just mind-boggling. And we've been, fairly consistent on that front also. Right. At this rate, I mean, no doubt we'll cross 800 million very soon. And hopefully all adult population will be vaccinated by end of the year. So, yeah, fantastic news coming in.
Well, yeah, I think hopefully just in time for the holiday season, things will pretty much be back to normal, right? It's high time that we have to step out right now. But anyway, yeah, let's get started with the news for this. You mentioned that, how brands are getting built out of India, right? And Pine Labs is a great example of that. Just ahead of its planned IPO in the US, they recently raised $100 million from US-based investment management company Invesco. Now, this comes after they raised 600 million at a valuation of $3 billion. And that round was led by Fidelity, BlackRock, and other investors in just July this year. And I think for their IPO, they have appointed Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs as advisors. And I think the valuation they're gunning for is around $6 billion. But if you just look at Pine Labs as a company, right, they have built a really impressive and inclusive financial stack, right from merchant payment, POS, and the most recently launched a buy now, pay later scheme, right? So what do you make of this, right? A brand built out of India and getting deployed globally?
Yeah. So Pine Labs has built itself on hard knuckle execution, right? I mean, they're perhaps one of the oldest payment providers, certainly older than, Razorpay, InstaMojo, all of the others, right? And payments is such a powerful thing. It's cross industry, right? We talk about internet penetration, but that internet penetration, coupled with payments is what is really enabling all of this, e-commerce or D2C, all of this phenomena that we're seeing. right? Even gaming that we'll talk about. So Pine Labs started with one of those POS terminals that you saw at petrol bunks and retail stores and so on. And they have an integration with over 24 banks and financial institutions, right? So payments is the tip of the spear. Obviously, they will offer a bunch of these things like buy now, pay later, the loan services, credit, and so on and so forth, right? And you can kind of think of Pine Labs as India Square, and Square is like $100+ billion market cap company that has been built, right? And so there's plenty of services that they're going to stack on. What's interesting also is that Pine Labs is expanded to the Middle East, expanded to Southeast Asia, right? And I mean, a lot of similar market dynamics in those regions as well, right? And I mean, Amresh Rao, who's the CEO of Pine Labs, is a veteran, right? He's been with Byju and Citrus earlier, and fantastic team, excellent execution, and really excited for what they will build out going into the future.
So even like recently, the India's gaming scene has been coming into the global spotlight, right? And recently, Mobile Premier League, they became the latest unicorn. They raised a $150 million Series E round, which is led by Legatum Capital at a valuation of around $2.3 billion. Existing investors, including Sequoia, SIG, RTP Global, Tesla Ventures, and Founders Circle Capital also participated in this round. Now, this skill gaming platform, they began operations in the US and have already completed 2 years of operations in India. And it's interesting to note that this is the only mobile gaming platform from India with a growing international presence. And I think by now they've clocked around 85 million users globally. They've also partnered with Play Magnus Group, which is started by chess rockstar Magnus Carlsen. And with this partnership, MPL will be hosting the official Indian circuit for players to qualify for the Meltwater Champion Chess Tournament. So, I mean, especially from a young person like me who has always been into mobile gaming, this is like really exciting news. What do you make of this?
No, nothing contrasts the Indian ecosystem, startup ecosystem of 2021 with, let's say 2011 or 2012, more than this whole gaming phenomena that we're seeing, right? I've referenced the NASCOM Product Conclave of 2013, where I was a volunteer, and you could literally there were hardly any people on the gaming track, right? I mean, people were spotting flies. So from there to where we have come is just phenomenal. And you have like MPL, Dream 11, Nazara, all of them $1 billion plus companies right now, right? And it's been enabled by the fact that we have the 700 million internet user base, right? Some of the highest data consumption per month at the cheapest data costs anywhere in the world, right? And that is a platform level innovation that is catapulting all of this, all of these startup innovations as well, right? And the important thing again here is the role of UPI, right? We spoke about UPI. That is really what is enabling transactions at scale, right? I mean, not simply internet. Now people can actually pay for stuff that they want to consume, right? And so I was listening to Sai's podcast. He was on a junior VC podcast, Founders Unfiltered, which is an amazing podcast, by the way. I mean, I highly recommend that you guys check it out, right? And he was just taking us through his journey, right? And he's come up through, again, he's a serial entrepreneur, and he's come up through the really, really hard way, right? I mean, right out of college, he built a hardware startup. They were, making dongles. And, I've at least interacted with people who work in the hardware space, and I've been an instrumentation engineer myself. So I kind of understand, the amount of time, effort, resources it kind of takes to ship in that space, right? And I mean, they even built a phone apparently, right? And so the number one thing that he was very, very conscious of is to pick a market that's completely digital and that can really scale, right? And also, I mean, the fact that you have to be really outcome driven. I think as engineers, he speaks of the fact that, I mean, you kind of get into this trap of, oh, you know what, I'm putting in so much of time and effort and, the world really owes me anything. But as he says, right, I mean, the market really doesn't care, and so, I mean, picking the right market, picking a scalable sort of a business model became a very key thing for him. And he gives the example of a shopping mall, right? I mean, whether the shops within the shopping mall itself are there tomorrow or day after, I mean, the shopping mall still is there, right? I mean, the shops may change, but the shopping mall is still there. And so, I mean, they decided very early on that they will not build these games themselves, right? Rather, they will become a studio where they will partner with game developers and they will provide distribution and other things like data and so on to these developers to scale their business, right? And that, along with that, I think the other decision also is to get into this whole competitive gaming for money model, right? Which is that, I can literally bet five rupees or 10 rupees against someone on a game. And this is again a very India behavior that they're trying to mirror as well. All of us have played in, I certainly have played cricket matches where, a bunch of us, 8-9 of us used to put in 10 rupees or 20 rupees each. And then, the winning team takes the kitty, right? So that again, it imitates whatever is happening in the external world in India, right? And very different from something like a Farmville kind of a model. Interestingly, Sai is from Zynga. He was a game designer, product manager in Zynga, right? And very different from the Zynga model where you paid for, pineapples or some extra square piece of land and so on, right? So vanity purchases. So yeah, I'm very, very optimistic, when I hear about these things, because again, if you think I am optimistic, you should, definitely check out Harsh Madhusudan, my friend, right? He tweets on the same handle, and he had an interesting tweet out last week where he said that, as you move from a $3 trillion economy to a $5 trillion economy, and as your per capita income, I think it's around the $7,000 adjusted mark right now, right? And as you move forward from here, the market will become bigger. There will be more innovation. There's a wider base of taxpayers to support, some of the government funding and so on, right? More open capital accounts, less reliance on the government, right? More infra, more growth, more jobs. All of these things start to kick in, right? And what you're seeing with MPL is the fact that you have an internet base, wide enough internet base, and some amount of discretionary capital as well, right? Which is, all of this is sort of combining to result in a phenomenal growth for the company itself. So yeah, hashtag Long India.
No, that is a good dose of optimism. But another thing that will actually help cement that, right, is another Tiger-backed company achieved its unicorn status last week, right? And that too in just a period of 22 months. And this is like the youngest unicorn India has produced so far. So Apna is helping millions of blue and grey collar workers in India upskill themselves and find new jobs. They recently raised a $100 million round from Tiger Global, and the valuation stood at around $1.1 billion. Owl Ventures, Insight Partners, Sequoia, Maverick Ventures, and GSV Ventures also participated in the round. And this is notably the third investment this year. Now, as I mentioned, Apna has built a platform that provides a community to the blue and grey collared workers. In this community, they engage with each other, exchange notes to perform better at interviews, and even share tips to negotiate better compensations. Currently, I think Apna is used in around 28 cities, but by the end of 2021, they plan to expand across India. In the past 15 months, they have grown 125x, and I think they're currently conducting close to 18 million interviews each month. Right? So this kind of is like the next iteration of Monster.com or Jobs.com, right? But yeah, the scale at which they have grown, it's really something, right? Amazing. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oftentimes people sort of moan about the government not providing enough jobs and so on, right? And I think that's a bit of an archaic mindset where people think that, okay, there will be jobs in PSUs and nationalized banks and infrastructure projects and so on. Of course, all of these are necessary, right? But the next wave of jobs for the next 30-40% of the country will not come through those jobs, right? It'll come through platform level innovation, and it'll come through private players, right? So if you look at Apna, they're, as you rightly said, they're the second evolution of the job sites, right? Think of it as a Naukri 2.0, where the users can kind of help each other. There's a lot of peer-to-peer communication, social elements there, right? And it's jobs and education at the same time. So they're more focused on the tier 2 cities and villages and so on, right? And they also have this masterclass kind of education modules and learning on the job, very outcome focused learning, right? And yeah, that seems to be working for them, right? Look at the growth. 125x.
15
it's just
months.
crazy. It's just, yeah, in 15 months. It's just amazing, right? And I think they've also partnered with some of the organizations like the National Skill Development Corporation, UNICEF, and so on, right? So, yeah, I mean, fantastic, especially, post COVID, we will really require this level of innovation to, take care of the economic safety of Indians, right? I mean, we do have the youngest population in the world. Obviously, people keep talking about this demographic dividend, but the demographic dividend is going to turn if we don't have jobs and education for this mass of people who are going to come into the market, right? And things like Apna are very, very much required. Yeah, do check out the podcast that my friend Jivraj has recorded with the founder Nimrit, right? I mean, Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I mean, it's a fantastic podcast. Do check that out as well.
So in addition to Apna, Tynker made another investment in Mensa last week, and the investment was of $10 million. Now, this fresh tranche for the firm has come after raising $33 million, which was co-led by Alpha Wave Incubation and Northwest. The valuation after this round, I think, is somewhere around $250 to $260 million, which is a jump of around 28.2% as compared to what it was in August. And I think after this, another round will be upcoming for Mensa, which will be around $50 million. Now, Mensa plans to acquire around 50 D2C brands in 3 verticals, which are home, lifestyle, and beauty. And the revenue of these brands would be anywhere from $1.5 to $10 million. Now, over the past rounders, we have been talking a lot about this marketplace roll-up startups, right? And the amount of investor interest this is garnering. What do you think is coming up for this space?
Yeah, see, I mean, I think last roundup we spoke about delivery, right? And the fact that they're sort of enabling this whole back-end logistic infrastructure to all of these folks, right? I mean, all of the D2C folks who can simply get their shop up and running, and not just get their shop up and running, but also have all of the underlying logistics sorted out very quickly in a matter of hours, if not, in a matter of days at least, right? And that's really what is happening, right? I mean, there are a lot of interesting D2C brands that are coming up, right? And we'll certainly talk about a couple in the roundup going further. And the one challenge is, though, that it's not a bits and bytes business. It's an atoms and molecules business. So you actually have to move physical things from one place to another, right? And setting up logistics, figuring out supply chain, all of those are very, very specialized skills, right? And as a founder, you can only go so far with first principles thinking. So scaling this kind of business requires expertise, right? And here you have people who have been there, done that, sort of helping you with that, right? And Mensa will act as a sort of an investor / holding company sort of a thing, right? Where they will house these brands and also leverage some of the horizontal capabilities that they have on all of these different fronts, right? Whether it's data, logistics, etc., to sort of scale these people, right? And yeah, I mean, look at how e-commerce has grown. Look at how D2C has grown, especially post-COVID. So you're going to see a lot more interesting brands coming out of India. I would love to see some of these brands scale internationally, right? I mean, we spoke about Nykaa, right? Nykaa could very well be an international brand, and really looking forward to that happening. That should be really interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, talking about D2C grew, I think, 251% just this year itself from 1st of January. And as part of that was also Flatheads' recent pre-series A round, which is around $1 million. The investors were We Founder Circle and Angel Network Dexter Angels. Now, Flathead designs all-day wear casual sneakers for the urban audience, and they launched a vision to create versatile sneakers suited for the Indian urban lifestyle. They're also one of the first Indian brands to introduce bamboo fiber shoes, right? And we have spoken with Ganesh and Utkarsh. They've built a really great team at Flatheads, and they're bringing some real innovation into the shoe industry, right? So did you get a chance to talk to them and congratulate them yet?
No, not yet. I mean, it reminded me that I should sort of message Ganesh, right? And yeah, so Flatheads, we spoke to them last August. And yeah, it's just the most comfortable shoes ever. I'm not kidding, right? I think I have bought 2 or 3 pairs, and I've suggested Flatheads to at least 3 or 4 people, right? And everyone has become a sort of a Flatheads fan, right? And they've really hit the nail in terms of the the positioning and also in terms of the category that they play in, right? And so they play in that whole affordable premium category, which is less than $5,000. And these are all day shoes. And believe me, I mean, they're so light and breathable and, comfortable that you don't mind wearing them all day, right? And at least back in the time when we used to go to offices, that used to be a pain, where you either had the option of sneakers or you had the option of these like really formal shoes, and neither was one was very comfortable, but you couldn't really translate that into an office environment. So Flatheads super comfortable shoes. Spoke to Ganesh and Utkarsh about various aspects, right? This whole D2C phenomena, what does it take to set up a brand? How do you sell? How do you partner? All of these facets, right? Very, very interesting episode. Do check it out. We'll also link to it in the description. Ganesh and Utkarsh, of course, met in IIT Bombay. Utkarsh is a designer by education. They ran this, payment startup called MoMo, which had QR codes. I'm not sure if you guys remember QR codes at restaurants, and it let you pay. They got acquired by ShopClues. So they've seen this whole phenomena before, right? I mean, they're serial entrepreneurs. Again, a very nice business, and do check out the shoes. They're super comfortable. Also, I mean, look at how thoughtful the entire experience is, not just a product, right? I mean, right from their advertising to the transaction to the post sale experience. I mean, it's super, super well designed, right? Kudos to the Flatheads team, and more power to you guys.
Also, here is something that we don't actually discuss every week, but Skyroot Aerospace has become the first private company in India to formally enter into an agreement with ISRO. The framework MoU will allow the company to undertake multiple tests and access facilities at various ISRO centers, and also avail the technical expertise of ISRO for testing and qualifying their space launch vehicle systems and subsystems. I think earlier we had spoken about Skyroot in the roundup when they had raised $11 million Series A round that was led by Greenco Group founders Anil Chalamasati and Mahesh Kohli. Now, this is a milestone moment for the India space ambitions, right? I mean, we have been hearing about companies like this. What do you make of it?
No, for sure. I mean, for sure. So any kind of support to core research, right? I mean, is going to have 10x, 100x sort of implications on everything downstream, right? And this core research is something which will affect a wide variety of innovation in the ecosystem itself, right? Skyroot was started by former ISRO scientists at that. And think of them as like a sort of a transportation company, right? I mean, they transport satellites from here to space, obviously, right? And a lot of support from very important ecosystem folks as well. Mukesh Bansal has funded this, and fantastic company. And the space also, right? Skyroot, I think the rockets are called Vikram after Vikram Sarabhai. There's a very interesting podcast, Mission ISRO, which is narrated by Harsha Bogle. And if you think about it, right, I mean, whenever India first came up with ISRO and when they launched rockets and everything, I mean, it was such a different time. And Harsha narrates this whole history of the launch and everything. I mean, it's just amazing. Do check it out. And we're also living in times where this is such an aspirational thing, right? I mean, the world's richest billionaires, right? Richard Branson or Elon Musk or who's that? Jeff Bezos. Everyone is really looking at the next frontier, which is space. And they're also typically, I mean, like these kind of vehicles, they cost like hundreds of millions of dollars, multiple 4 or 5 years of effort, right? But what Skyroot is doing is reducing the effort it takes, right? I mean, they're producing at 1/5 the cost, right? Typical Indian jugaad and innovation, right? I mean, this is going to be very interesting. And kudos to government organizations like ISRO that really encourage startup innovation. I mean, of course, when it comes to something like space tech and so on, right? There's only so much you can build. You also have to leverage a lot of these facilities, right? And wonderful news coming in. And kudos to ISRO as well, right, for enabling this.
Also, in other news, Byjus has made its 9th acquisition for this year, which is California headquartered Tynker. Tynker is a leading coding platform for K-12 students, and they count BBC Learning, Google, Microsoft, Mattel, and NASA among its partners. I think it has over 60 million kids on its platform who is learning about coding. This 8-year-old company gamifies the entire experience using robots and drones. So like for example, to help kids visualize complex concepts, right? They have this really cool animations like in AR and VR. And to make it more exciting for it, they're able to participate live into it. The startup also has partnerships and presence in over 100,000 schools across 150 nations. But if you have to just compare it, right, like feature to feature, this is very similar to Whitehead Junior acquisition, if I'm not wrong, which they made earlier. So what do you make of this? What direction is Byju's actually taking the company to?
Byjus is becoming a Vishwaguru, right? I mean, so that's really what they're trying to do. I mean, they're expanding in the US. They bought another startup there for 300 or 500 million. I forget how much.
I think we have to keep
right?
a tab of all the companies they acquire now.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Then they
it's 9 acquisitions in 9 months of the year, right?
Yeah.
So I think I mentioned a bunch of this last podcast as well, right? Very inorganically sort of adding to the top line, adding to the user base. Given the headroom, all of this is extremely, all of this is justified, and also the profit margins as well, which I mentioned last time. So do check out that segment of the last roundup if you want to understand what's really happening with Byjus and why they're acquisition crazy. But yeah, I mean, all of this is merited given the whole TAM of the market that they're playing in.
Right. But also let's talk about the education system, right? So your good friend Devaya put out a nice tweet. The Indian education system is messed up. Assembling furniture from IKEA makes me fall in love with engineering more than 4 years of engineering college ever could. So you mentioned today that you have been an instruments engineer. So what are your thoughts? Like, how do you think where we are at right now?
So incidentally, it was Engineers Day also, right? Not too long ago. I think it was 3 or 4 days back as well. And I think, and I might get a lot of flack for this, but I feel like engineering is thought in a very scientific way, but engineering is tinkering. A lot of science is abstracted from engineering, right? You discover things, you tinker, and then you realize, oh, you know what, maybe this is the principle behind something, right? Which is often confused backwards, right? I mean, we often tend to do this. I mean, but Nassim Taleb makes a point as well. Do check out, what he has to say about it. But yeah, I mean, it's when you make things, it's when you build things, it's when you tinker, is when you understand, what really real engineering is, right? I mean, sure, I mean, you could study field theory in your classrooms and, get a understanding of things, right? But yeah, I really wish that, I really hope that, education is a little more hands-on, right? Is a lot more about building than it is about just, studying concepts, because concepts are really abstract, and unless you sort of see it in motion, it doesn't really relate with your experience, right? So yeah, I mean, Devaya makes a fine point as always.
Yeah, but also I think the entire education policies of India has been getting reformed. Recently, they had announced the NEP program, right? The new education policy earlier this year.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to. Yeah.
No, that's a good point, because NEP again lays focus on a lot of vocational stuff as well, right? Which is like, again, a departure from how it was viewed earlier. And I mean, I'm also really happy about the fact that edtechs are sort of innovating on this, right? So we had Saurabh of UAble on the podcast earlier, and yeah, I mean, some really exciting stuff. And for sure, I mean, our kids are not going to learn the same way that we learned, right?
All right, so that was kind of the highlight for the week. So you have spoken to Sonal Singh and Vasant Sridhar, right? And I think these episodes we're putting out this week. Some what are the things that were your biggest takeaways from these two conversations?
Yeah, so let me start with Vasant, right? Such a candid conversation. Vasant is extremely articulate, and also, I mean, for an operator, right? I mean, he also has a great handle on the macro stuff, right? Which is not usually the case. So I really had fun talking to him about everything that's happening in B2B commerce, manufacturing in India, right? And yeah, do check out, the off business episode. I mean, they built a fantastic business, right? I mean, I keep saying these are multiple businesses in one: procurement, finance, platform, marketplace, etc. SaaS, not to mention, right? And yeah, amazing episode. Do check that out. And I also spoke to Sonal a while back. Actually, they're building a fitness community, right? And very interesting sort of a business again. A lot of aspects we covered on building a community, right? How to grow and monetize your community and so on. Yeah, interesting episodes coming up. Do check it out.
Yeah. Also, I think Roshan, last week we crossed 1,000 followers on Twitter. Right?
Ooh.
So yeah,
Amazing.
thanks everyone who have been constantly giving us the support, sharing the feedback, and helping us become better every day. Do keep these suggestions coming in so that we can produce more relevant and more insightful content for you. But yeah, do follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's at Operator Startup, and on LinkedIn, the Startup Operator, for the latest updates of who are we going to talk to, what's coming up, and yeah, exciting news always. Thanks, Roshan, for taking us through the news, and I hope everyone has a great day ahead.
So Sarthak Agarwal has said in the comments that the season 2 of Mission ISRO is coming soon, right? I'm really looking forward to it. And apparently Skyroot's engine is called Kalam 5. So there's another tribute as well. So yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And look forward to...
There was one more thing, Roshan. I think better you can say this. I think we're launching our own WhatsApp channel as well.
Yeah, we're launching a WhatsApp subscription, basically where we will sort of deliver these episodes and snippets and other information directly to your WhatsApp inbox, right? 100% no spam guaranteed, right? We'll do this only a few times a week, and do watch out on our social channels for the phone number, and yeah, look forward to sending you these subscriptions.
Yes, I think we'll link the WhatsApp group in the description of this video and also on the podcast platforms. But yeah, folks, again, we'll come back again next Sunday with the new developments in the space. So stay tuned and have a great week ahead.
Bye.